Another communicative approach is the content and language integrated learning approach, which emerged in the 1990s, not as a new form of language education nor a new form of subject education, but as a new way of combining both language learning and content learning. So CLIL falls within the communicative approach since language learning is applied within authentic context for real life language use. The need for CLIL has arisen dramatically with the effects of globalization on education. Students from any language background can engage in studying English medium content course. This creates the need for content-specific language development. So what is Clil? Clil is not just using a second language to learn content, but learning content and language simultaneously. This dual focus is the aspect of learning that is emphasized by CLIL. Ball suggests that if you teach EMI, English as a medium of instruction, LAC, language across the curriculum, CBI, content-based instruction, or CBLT, content-based language teaching, if you work in bilingual education, if you're a subject teacher working through the medium of foreign language, or a language teacher bringing in content into your English lesson, you work within the area of content and language integrated learning. Within this description, we see considerable overlap between CLIL, English for academic purposes, and English for specific purposes, in which learners focus on the language necessary to complete a particular line of study or to fulfill the duties of a particular vocation or profession. Immersion programs, for example, as found in secondary school in Australia, are a good example of CLIL, in which students learn content, maths, science, etc., through a new language, for example, French or Japanese. The content instruction necessarily includes language instruction, as this communicative knowledge and skill is still developing. It is helpful to think of modes of delivery of the CLIL as falling somewhere on a continuum between one end of this spectrum, a language program in which some content material is used, and the other end of the spectrum, which is completely subject-led and may or may not include specialist language teachers. A variety of delivery strategies will range between these, with varying levels of focus on language and content. So what are some of the characteristics of CLIL? Learning content through the medium of a foreign language will involve recognizing the role that language plays in the learning process, seeing language development as integral to content area knowledge and skill development, supporting the development of content area knowledge and skills by consciously developing the relevant language, embedded relevant language development within content area tasks, finding an effective approach to focusing on both meaning and form, where the balance may shift more towards one or the other at different times. And then we look at Coyle, Hood and Marsh's three-way focus on language of learning, so developing language needed for accessing the basic concepts and skills of a theme or a topic, for example, vocabulary and genre. Language for learning, so developing language needed to operate in the learning environment, for example, participating in pair work, group projects, tutorials, discussions, and questioning. And finally, language through learning, based on the principles that effective learning involves language and thinking. Learning is clarified, reinforced, and deepened through articulation. As learners talk or write about what they're learning, language teaching and learning will respond to those emerging needs. So what are the benefits of CLIL? CLIL streamlines content and language into one classroom and one holistic learning experience. When the class teacher is addressing language needs, there's no longer the need for auxiliary programs for developing language. This process demands that the content teacher addresses the language, literacy, and numeracy demands that are implicit in the content. And there is a high learner motivation because there is immediate application of the language for success in the future through gaining and sustaining employment and continued skill development. Language learning is an essential key. Let's have a look at the implications. So CLIL teachers need to develop skills and knowledge about the language of their subject. They also need to be able to create tasks which offer learners access to this language. Teachers have to adjust and expand their range of techniques in order to accommodate the language development aspect. For example, offer opportunities for recycling of the content via group work and tasks. Learning activities need to involve higher order thinking with active learning techniques that involve processing of material, using input to produce something. Highly communicative processes and activities are used for learning. Learners articulate their learning, discussing with other learners and with teachers as learning progresses, asking and answering questions along the way. And also materials need to be developed with language learners in mind. This is actually good for all learners. Adjustments could include addition of glossaries to text, wider margins for note-taking, and use of plain English writing standards. So let's have a look here at a CLIL lesson plan. So this is from the British Council. You can have a look at this on the internet. So our topic here is regional geography and general studies. So we're integrating language and geography. Our aims are to increase students' knowledge of the subject content, content-related lexis, language skills such as note-taking, and provide material and information for further topic and language-based studies. So here we have our lead in. It's about the geography of Vancouver. We have our tasks, so predicting the content. This is using our reading skills, predicting. Students are listening, they're analysing, so reading. They have a vocabulary focus here, reading again, and follow-up activities. So this is essentially a reading lesson around the topic of geography. Fluent U also gives us a few examples of some really great engaging CLIL lesson plans. So if we scroll down here, we've got connections to art, social studies, and history in this lesson plan here. Diving into ocean life is a focus on biology, art, math, social studies, and history. Wikipedia Reborn is focusing on social studies and science. And then we have a maths one here, so maths, art, and science. So these are just some ideas of CLIL. And you can use this program in your classroom, in your general English program.